Hey, what's up? So, this is a sort of companion or follow up video for the footage of Word Image Sound Play that I uploaded. Um, you can just watch this if you want more of an in the weeds kind of explanation of what the hell you're looking at, but it's really more to chronicle my own findings in the game files and just kind of sort of the back end stuff that I found in looking at this bizarre and fascinating piece of art. So yeah, let's get on to that. And you might have noticed that this was actually published by Sony Music Entertainment, which I think might have something to do with sort of what this thing is. It not being a game so much as a almost an interactive art piece. So starting off, we've got Miracles and Wonders, and this is kind of, as you saw or might have seen, it's an interactive story book. Not really an interactive story, but an interactive story book, which is kind of an interesting idea, I guess. So, let me. So basically, whenever you look at the ISO of Word Image Sound Play, it starts off with standard PS2 game files. There is this IOPRP255.img file. I don't know what that is. And there's the IRX folder that is in all of every PS2 game, basically. The IRX folder is what holds all of the essentially DLLs or drivers as a Windows equivalent. That's kind of everything that's packed in with the game to let the PS2 deal with whatever is inside the game. We could probably use this to determine how it's doing some things, but from some of my findings in looking at other games, whatever's in that IMG file might also contain some stuff, and I am honestly way too limited in my capabilities to be able to dig into that, which unfortunately means that extracting some of the audio files is not going to be as easy as I would like. Anyway, if you go into the data folder, you'll see that each mini game, sub game thing is split into its own folder. And if we go into Miracles, we've got Ansem, Nara, Pict 0, Pict 1, and Text. Interesting thing with the PS2, all files in a PS2 game, I believe, have to follow the DOS 8.3 naming convention. I'm not sure why that's the case. I highly doubt that they are running DOS on a PS2. I was always under the impression that it was some form of Linux or Unix, but yeah, just a strange limitation. I'm assuming it's something weird with the file system. Maybe it's using FAT. Maybe it's using FAT, and FAT is limited to that. Can't remember. In any case, Ansem is, I'm imagining the background sounds. I don't know why it's Ansem, but more interesting, the Nara folder is actually split into the different sections for each part of the story, and then each section also has two folders, one for the English narration and one for the Japanese narration, with each, I guess, line for each part of the story being its own ADS file. And I can't seem to find any information on what file format this is. I guess what created it. The file format might just be some kind of PCM, like a compressed PCM. But yeah, without that, it's kind of difficult to extract. And I did try it with a couple of PS2 file tools, but to no real luck. Then again, Windows 10 doesn't play well with some of those tools because they were made back in like the mid to late 2000s, and they don't really play well with Win 10. And then we dig into the Picked 0 folder, and you get chapter pictures. I guess there are this many pictures? I don't remember. But yeah, it's kind of self-explanatory. What I really like, though, is that all of the text pieces for each chapter are in these .txt files, which aren't just text. There's actually some stuff in here for commands for whatever engine this is, which I mean, I guess they must have either built their own engine or had Sony help them build an engine. But yeah, if you go into one of these text files, you can see that verbose was left on 1, which is kind of curious. And we have all these settings for the narration volume, the font size. There's formatting information in each of the lines, which I think is kind of really cool. I find this kind of thing fascinating, obviously. But yeah, I'll go ahead and read the entire story here. And yeah. Once there was a house, and in that house lived a man, a woman, and their 2 children. One morning, the man decided to go out into the garden. In the greenhouse, he grew vegetables. He had just finished rebuilding the shed, and he kept all the wood for the fire there. The garden was on the edge of the forest. The man thought of a dream he had, a dream of someone close yet who remained out of reach. The man took a short walk into the forest. He noticed there was a stick propped up against the big rock. A dream of someone he had loved, lying next to him in bed. But when he touched them, there were only sheets, pillows, no one there. The man's bare feet were wet with dew. The mist was burning away. The spiders had been busy last night, spitting out their webs. Between the strands, silent and safe, waiting. The webs were everywhere, carpeting the forest and on the road. He noticed one suspended between the fence and the post, dry and sticky. He feels irritated and annoyed, but he doesn't know why. It's in the way, blocking the light and the beautiful view. And the man breaks the web, pushes his finger into and through it, tears it down. He feels a gentle burning. Looking out from their house, the woman, this is where the children play. Over the fields, the forest, the lake. As she looks, the way the clouds move make her feel like the forest is coming closer. She doesn't like this feeling. After a long day working, the man rests. This is all his land. There are the 2 barns, the cow shed, the pathway to the lake. Bees, flies, spiders, small black flies biting all the same. He walks in the twilight, along the path past 3 trees and towards the lake. Brighter, fading. There where the trees have spilled over, it's dark. He hears his little girl shouting, singing. What is hanging over, crawling inside? Quietly, the red barns, looking. They're waiting for him. That morning had been hard. The children had been crying and he was tired. There were more bills and a court summons. Last night he had been awake too long, unsettled, and he'd been looking out at the cowshed. Had he heard sounds? As a child in the playground, he had told his friends that a tiny worm had fallen from space the night before, and now they must find it before it grew so big it would encircle the planet. While they searched, the longer they played, the more he believed it was true. What is in there? Everything is still. Up in the trees beside the barn where the hunters would wait for the deer, and the man passes, troubled, still tired, no sleep, the children crying and nothing to say to each other. The gentle voice sang all last night, calling. The barn door is open. Transparent, with no sound inside, only the light. This morning he made a bonfire. He has been burning leaves, twigs, and he's tripped and fallen into the fire, burning his hand and face. They were not serious burns, but he had been shocked and frightened. Someone is singing to him. Where does it come from? Something sparkles, a movement, over by the other barn. The man follows. The light changes. The twinkling light by the barn door, as if he could go in. A little star wondering. These days of silence since the broken web, last night's waking dream. The shore is gone. High tide has come. The crocodiles swim out to sea. All our things are washed away. The light flickers around the machines in the corner, past the grinder. The light from the window as the sun breaks on the cowshed. The light filling everything with power, remembering the rowan and the birch and the hay. Under the window, the child's empty bed where the light rests and he falls, the pain stinging his hand in his face, out of the door and onto the ground. The worm waits under the hill. He ran after his daughter through the trees, hiding and seeking, and she laughed and giggled, screaming with joy when he found her. He holds her high, throwing her in the air and catching her safely, swinging her round and round. She jumps to the ground and skips away, running as fast as she can, and the sun dips, the light lowering as she disappears among the shadows and leaves. He runs after the sound of her, laughing, echoing, only echoing for him, and the singing soft as he comes back to the road and the cowshed. His little girl is by the cowshed. He sees her running, looking back over her shoulder, running faster and around the other side. The pain in his face and his hand. He follows up the road. I wonder what you are. He calls after her, and the light makes figures in bursting circles, fading, marking the place and time, pointing the way inside. There is no sign of his daughter. The door is unlatched, just ajar. It is dark inside. He always holds his breath when first steps in here. And although he knows it's not swimming underwater, the feeling inside is similar. There are lots and lots of corners in here, too many. He calls out his daughter's name gently. The ceiling is low. There is hay scattered on the floor. The cowshed is empty. He starts to breathe heavily in panic. The burns on his face and hand tighten, swell. Where is she? Last night's dream was strong and clear. When a few hours had passed and their daughter had not returned, they called the police. He was very, very tired and had to sleep. He had to go into the forest. They had heard no news, and his wife rested. A dream of 7 flowers, the lake in silence, the beginning of everything. His daughter returned. He picks the flowers one by one. She will come back. He drifts further into the trees, the tiny white flowers in clusters of circles twinkling. The wind goes stronger, and he moves faster. He strides now, his steps further and further apart, bending and picking flowers as he goes. He has forgotten the pain from his burns. His strides are longer and longer, running too fast, propelled along by the wind. Into the trees, running and running, and he hears the song, strange and deep, rumbling in the earth. And the trunks of the trees, in the clouds, in his blood. He passes through, in his flight trembling, with his flowers in his fists, and his eyes burn red, his mouth opened wide. The gold light is with him, and in his mind he knows this cannot be, as he gusts through the forest, transparent, howling, a horrible burning and buzzing inside. Swift runner, fast runner, endlessly. Swinging and whirling, he's falling and falling. He hits the road hard on his side and squirms to get up, pain all over and the light within the trees moving away. The light hovers near for a moment or more, and he gets to his feet, the flowers still in his hand. He watches as the light leaps away, up into the sky. The flowers were wilting. She had returned that morning, skipping out of the cowshed as if she had never been away. He knew there was something he must do. He would keep his promise. From the first-floor balcony, he could see out all over his land. His hand and face are tingling, raw, from the fence to the lake and the forest waiting on the hill, as the worm stirred in its long sleep, dreaming. He jumped from the balcony, landing awkwardly but still holding on to the dying flowers. There was a sharp pain in his ankle as he walked through the gate. Back along the pathway, past the 3 trees, he stumbled and limped. He would not look back. The house was quiet, his wife and children getting ready for bed. It seemed to him that he had wandered very far, a strange enchanted journey that had been taken many times before, older than thought and far, far away. The same pathway, never the same, always and of this one moment passing by, something very sad and also just something, a path, nothing. The sun was very low, setting late in the evening, casting long shadows ahead and behind of the future and the past. At the end of the path, by the end of the forest, on a little hill and below the shore. Down to the lake and over. There the cows lowing, flies all around, midges and tiny black flies, sharp pinpricks all over again and again on the hands and face, red swells flaring. Now he thinks of his daughter, and how today when she returned, and told him about the beautiful lady in the trees and her lovely songs. Then he thinks how on the bonfire this morning there was a hay dolly smoking, as if burnt the night before. And then he just knew what could happen and what he must do. But he still doesn't understand why. He limps along the stony path, the rocks unbalancing him, the little bites on his face and arms rising in welts, still holding on to the sad flowers. The wooden jetty dips under the water with his weight, and he holds out his arms, balancing the pain from the burns and bites itching unbearably. As he enters the water, he looks at the island with the sun setting behind and thinks how beautiful it is. There is no end. There are only means. The flowers spread out, floating on the water. The last thing he thinks is of his wife, above all, forever and evermore. So that was Miracles and Wonders. If you listen to that whole story, good for fucking you, because I did not expect that to take a 10 full minutes of fucking reading. Anyway, we move on to Sleeping Eye, which, so I'll go into how I'm playing this. I'm using OpenPS2 Loader on free McBoot. And as you can see here, the loading is basically not functional. I'm not really sure why, because to be honest, I just kind of played with the settings in OpenPS2 Loader until it worked correctly. And to get this game to work correctly, I turned on synchronized mode, I think it was called, and that seemed to fix several issues I was having, mainly with assets being streamed off the disk. But yeah, OpenPS2 Loader loading over Ethernet, you can actually just kind of run the PS2 into either a USB to Ethernet adapter or plug it directly into the Ethernet port on your computer, or you can run it through a switch or whatever. But I didn't really want the PS2 to be on my network in any real capacity, just to be safe. But yeah, there are a number of guides out there on how to use this thing, but I'll be kind of honest, it's not, I really like that phrase, don't I? It's not the simplest thing in the world, and I would really recommend that you have somebody maybe more technical try to help you with it if you want to do something like that. Otherwise, just stick to emulators. It's really fine. In fact, this game works fine in an emulator. I only recorded it off of an actual PS2 because I forked out the money for the hardware to be able to do that. So I wanted to. Anyway, so this one, not as much to get out of the game thing as I would like. Unfortunately, it's really just because of the limitations of what tools I have. All of the different segments have their own folders. There are these PSS files, which are standard PlayStation video files, but the PSS Player application that I found can't play them. Can't play the videos off of any PS2 game that I've tried, honestly. So, again with the honestly, I don't. What is wrong with me? But yeah, I don't really know whether there is any real big secret otherwise, because practically everything in this is all just these weird proprietary file formats that I can't do anything with. Uh, Maybe there's more to it that you could get, but I can't figure anything out. So really, there's not much other than just, you know, the weird fucking short film at the end. So yeah, sorry if you were hoping for something insightful on Sleeping Eyes, but I guess I could say that this is definitely the most interactive and most game-like thing on the disc. Um, I do think that it's like right up there in terms of being a quote-unquote art game, as compared to what a lot of modern so-called art games do. They mainly just with the component of like trying to find the interactive thing. Like it's almost akin to a point and click adventure game, without any, anything in depth. Like obviously there's no puzzle or anything outside of maybe the sliding puzzle thing at the opening that I don't understand how to deal with and don't have a whole lot of interest in figuring out. That said, I think this is really impressive, considering we were still like very much trying to figure out what games could even be defined as at this point. Like this was long before we had stuff like Gone Home and Depression Quest and the kind of things that like made people go, "This not game." Like this was, I don't know for sure when this was published, but it had to have been early 2000s. So, yeah, it doesn't say, but probably like 2003. No, well, it says right here the last modified date was 2004. So yeah, like probably sometime in 2004, this was released, and I never played anything like this before before 2004. Like there were probably some weird things on Newgrounds that maybe you might have seen, but the fact that this was pressed on disc is just really, really weird. Anyway, I'll move on to the next one that actually has a little bit of cool information to share. So then we move from the most interactive bit of word image sound play to the least interactive. And I don't like this one. I don't understand what it's trying to say or do. I understood the story thing, that it's trying to tell sort of a surreal story that may or may not be supernatural. I guess it probably is, about loss and acceptance and all that, but um and like the other one, Sleeping Eye, like it's trying to tell a love story, or well, it does at one point, but it's like I think maybe trying to make a point about art and about having a point in the first place. This, on the other hand, I can only assume that it is just meant to be a cool toy. I cannot fathom what else it is supposed to be. So there is there is a couple of Sorry, if you can't tell, I'm freewheeling this and not writing anything down, and I should be writing things down. There are a couple of things in here that we can at least look at. So we go into the lat long folder, and we've got config.txt, which I'm kind of wanting to maybe go in and do an ISO patch on this to modify. There's a show debug info flag that you can change, and I'm curious as to whether that will change anything in the game. I doubt it, because it's already set to show. And the other one, Miracles and Words, or whatever the hell it was called, that one had debug also turned on, and didn't seem like I didn't see anything obvious that had to do with that. But you can see in these files this file, that there may have been, it may be that it was designed in such a way that, like, at the very least, the colors could be changed, the text could be modified. You might have been able to extend this with other videos. I'm really not sure. It's also referred to as lat long story, which again makes me think that there's supposed to be more to this, and I can't find it. And I don't know if it's just that I'm too dense or it's too dense, but in any case, it's just too much for me to bother with. I messed around with this thing for a good 15-20 minutes and could not find anything other than press the circle button to switch between Kent and Tokyo. So yeah, I just don't know. If you know, please let me know. There's also this map.txt file, which if you put it into a translator, pretty much just gives you a whole bunch of other gibberish words. So don't know why that's there, along with text_E and text_J. So while I was editing this, I opened text_E to take a picture of it, and it turns out that the whole thing is a story being done word by word. So that's what it all is. It's another story, just in a different format. I'm not going to read that whole thing because it's really fucking long. So last up we have phonology, which I think I referred to as phrenology multiple times before this. Fuck me. So this is without a doubt the main star of the show. Sleeping Eye is pretty close, but this is definitely something I could see myself using as like a tool to make really weird background audio or something. And like, if I could rip these videos, which I spent seriously like 3 hours trying to get these videos ripped, and I can't do it. Like, there would have to be some kind of specifically made tool, I think, to do this, because of the way that they are. Yeah, very good description. Basically, they're not standard PSS video files, so a PSS player won't work anyway, even if the one I had did work. They're actually all DAT files. And I've thought about this, and I'm kind of wondering if they are DAT files because maybe PSS can't do transparency, and there's obviously some level of transparency going on here. So maybe they're actually just all series of images, and that would make a lot of sense in how these are being manipulated in such a way. So what I think is most impressive, and I'm sorry if I just hit my mic, what I think is most impressive about this is that somehow every individual playing image sequence, video, whatever, all of them are seemingly stored in RAM. And I have no clue how that is possible. I don't know quite how much RAM is in the PS2, but it isn't much. And like videos, especially back at this point in time, videos were fucking massive. Now, these have been compressed like a motherfucker. Like, you can very easily tell that they've taken out a lot of the color and the resolution is trash. But still, I find that really impressive that they've managed to fit up to 8 constantly playing video feeds into the PS2's RAM. And the reason that I know that it's being held in RAM is I can see when the PS2 loads off of my computer, because the network usage on the Ethernet adapter that I have will shoot up when it starts loading. And it will load the video feed initially. That's whenever it's frozen. No, well, that's partially loading, and I think might be something else. I'll get to that in a second. But it appears to just be loading it off of the disk, and then it just plays the rest of it in RAM, which does make a lot of sense, because I don't even think that there's enough bandwidth in the PS2 disk drive to be able to constantly load all those files and play them back in a loop, all in real time. Like, this is really impressive, especially for an art studio that seemingly never did before and never has since made a video game, period. So I don't know how they managed to do that. I'm also not a programmer. Maybe it's a lot less complicated and a lot less impressive than I think it is. But, fuck you. So if we go into the config file, this is where things get really interesting to me. So the different effects and whatnot seem to be modifiable in this config file. I don't really know what, if anything, these settings do, because it seems like each video or audio clip has its own like built-in effect. Like they made those effects whenever they were making the video. But it's interesting that those exist. And also that like the colors of the indicators on the sides can be changed, even though they are just white and there's no apparent way to change them in the game. And like this layout or layer priority thing with the layouts, I'm not gonna mess with all these to see what they change, but I do think that it's really cool that it seems as though one could create new layouts just by basically putting a tab and then writing in the layout. And it's so crazy that this is all just in a text file and that it's so easily modifiable and that it seems to be flexible. But then we get into the stuff that tells it how to play each video. So you have all the file names and the folders. You can't put more than 30 files in one folder, which I think is interesting. I wonder if that is some kind of failure. And it does tell us what kind of audio we're looking at. So we're looking at 48 kilohertz, either mono or stereo. Some are one, some are the other. Not sure why some of them are mono and some are stereo, other than maybe to save space. But we also have this beat indicator and beat length, which I wonder then if the game tries to synchronize all the clips as they're playing. I don't know if it does or not. It doesn't seem like it does, because you would have noticed whenever I was messing with it that I could get things to play out of sync or in sync. So I'm not really sure what these beat positions do, or what the start and end positions, like, I don't know. I don't know whether or not any of this actually like does much other than the beat length. There's also this beat mode, which I don't really get what that means because they're all 0. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, it's kind of cool. I wish I had more insight into this, but I just think it's very interesting. And then there's this track layout thing. I don't know what it is. I don't know. Maybe it has something to do with oh, you know what it probably is? It's probably the actual layouts. That's what it is. It's setting the location of each track in each individual layout. Okay. And then the most interesting part, and what I really want to try to modify, is this background thing. So it is set to 0, but there are settings to change the background color, and they have been set to different things. But they've disabled the background entirely for some reason. And there's even a setting for sound reaction, which I'm guessing they didn't end up using. Maybe. I don't know. They're all set to 255. So I'm guessing that if it is set in any way that it'll just, I guess that would be white. Would that just, I guess it just flashes white every time there's sound. Maybe they had to turn that off because of because it caused seizures or something. I don't know. But yeah, I kind of want to play with that. Let's see if I can make like some kind of, is it an IPS patch? Is what we use for ISO differential patching? I can't remember. I've only recently gotten back into this whole thing. So yeah, thanks for coming to my TED Talk about this really obscure art thing for the PS2. I hope that it was at least marginally interesting. It probably wasn't. I will probably get one view on this, and they will watch for the first 30 seconds and then leave. But hey, that's okay, because I just really, really like looking at semi-lost media like this, and I am very happy that I was able to experience it. And I hope that maybe I can bring some more stuff like this to you in the future, because I don't have an actual subject matter on this channel. So yeah, thanks for coming. See you later. Bye.